world just witnessed something truly shocking. The United States has unveiled its 2025 UFO aircraft, the Warthog, and it's turning heads worldwide. With the power to shift global military dynamics, this new technology is more than just a spectacle, it's a game changer. In an age where traditional warfare no longer cuts it, nations must adapt to new challenges, and the United States is once again setting the bar. What makes this UFO aircraft so revolutionary? How will it impact the balance of power, especially with adversaries like Russia and China? Join us as we dive into the capabilities of the Warthog and its potential to reshape future conflicts. The A-10, nicknamed the Warthog, is a military plane that's been flying since 1977. The United States Air Force uses it for one main job: protecting ground troops by attacking enemy tanks and armored vehicles. Sometimes it also helps guide other aircraft to their targets, like a spotter in the sky. While other Air Force planes can do many different jobs, the A-10 was built specifically for supporting ground troops, making it unique in the Air Force fleet. The plane has two names. Its official name, Thunderbolt II, comes from an old fighter plane, but pilots prefer calling it the Warthog or Hog because it looks tough and ungainly, just like the animal. The Air Force wanted to improve on their old plane, the A-1 Skyraider. So they built the A-10 around its most important part, a huge spinning gun that shoots 30mm bullets. The A-10 proved its worth during the Gulf War in 1991, helping push Iraqi forces out of Kuwait. Since then, it has been busy, flying missions in the Balkans, Afghanistan, Iraq, and against ISIS in the Middle East. The Air Force wanted to replace the A-10 with the newer F-35 fighter jet, but a lot of people, both in the military and in Congress, disagreed. In 2023, they got permission to start retiring some A-10s, but they had to pump the brakes. Before they can retire more planes, they need to show they have something else that can support ground troops just as well as the A-10. After World War II, the United States military stopped focusing on planes that could attack ground targets with regular bombs and bullets. Instead, they wanted fast jets that could carry nuclear weapons, like the F-101 and F-105. When Vietnam came around, they had to rely on an old propeller plane from the Korean War, the A-1 Skyraider. The Skyraider could carry lots of weapons and stay in the air for a long time, but it had problems. It was too slow, and enemy soldiers could easily hit it with their guns from the ground. In fact, the United States lost 266 Skyraiders in Vietnam, mostly from soldiers shooting at them with regular rifles. This showed that the military needed something new, a plane that could survive getting shot at while still being able to help troops on the ground. The Air Force realized they needed a cheaper plane to work alongside their expensive F-4s and F-111s. At first, they looked at the F-5 fighter jet, but that wasn't quite right. Then in 1965, they did some math and decided the A-7D Corsair II would be a better choice. It seemed cheaper at the time. But things did not go as planned. Once they started asking for a better engine and new electronics, the price tag doubled and the Air Force was back to square one, still needing an aircraft that could do the job without breaking the bank. The NATO Army discovered something interesting when they started using their UH-1 helicopter to transport troops. Soldiers in the field came up with a creative solution. They modified these helicopters by adding extra machine guns, creating what would become known as gunships. This innovation proved highly effective against enemy forces who lacked sophisticated anti-aircraft weapons. The success of these gunships led to something new, the AH-1 Cobra. This was a helicopter built specifically for attack missions, carrying missiles that could destroy tanks from far away. The Cobra worked so well that NATO changed its whole plan for defending Europe. Instead of relying on nuclear weapons to stop Soviet tanks, they started planning to use these attack helicopters. One of their main weapons was a 30mm GAU-8 cannon, an enormous gun that could fire 3,900 rounds each minute. It was so powerful it could destroy most tanks by blasting right through their top armor, which wasn't as thick as the sides. This gun was special because it used depleted uranium shells, which got even better at piercing armor as they flew faster. In September 1966, Air Force Chief General McConnell ordered the development of a new aircraft dedicated to ground support operations. The program became official in December, under the AX designation. In March 1967, they contacted 21 aircraft manufacturers seeking proposals for the new ground attack aircraft. The message was straightforward. They needed a new kind of plane built for a specific task: ground support. In May 1970, the Air Force laid out what they wanted in the new plane. They needed something that could take out Soviet tanks in any weather conditions. At its heart would be a powerful 30mm rotating gun. In fact, the whole plane was designed around this weapon. The plane had to meet specific limits. It couldn't go faster than 460 miles per hour, had to take off in 4,000 feet of runway, and needed to carry 16,000 pounds of weapons. The fuel tank had to be big enough for a round trip of 285 miles to the target. Each plane would cost $1.4 million, about $11 million in today's money. This would be the first Air Force plane built just for supporting ground troops. They also started a separate search for someone to build the special gun they wanted. It needed to fire 4,000 rounds per minute and shoot with high speed. 6 companies came up with designs, but the Air Force picked just 2 to build test planes: Northrop's YA-9 and Fairchild Republic's YA-10. For the gun, they chose General Electric and Philco Ford to build test versions. Fairchild Republic built 2 test A-10s at their New York factory, and on the 10th of May 1972, pilot Sam Nelson took one up for its first flight. When it came time to build the real thing, they moved production to Maryland. The Thunderbolt II went up against Northrop's YA-9 in a competition, and in January 1973, the Air Force picked the A-10 as the winner. They also chose General Electric to build the big gun that would go in the plane. But there was one more hurdle. In 1974, the Air Force made the plane compete against the A-7D Corsair II, which was their main attack plane at the time. They wanted to be sure they really needed a new plane. The first production made its maiden flight in October 1975, with deliveries to the Air Force beginning in March 1976. Fairchild modified an early A-10 into a 2-seat test version, adding a second crew member to handle electronic warfare, navigation, and target acquisition. This variant was designed for night and poor weather operations. Neither the Air Force nor foreign buyers showed interest in this version. Though the Air Force tried to order some 2-seat trainers in 1981, Congress denied the funding and none were built. The Warthog has a low-mounted wing that sticks straight out from each side of the plane, with a thick wing shape. It can turn and maneuver really well at slow speeds close to the ground because it has large wings and big control surfaces on it. These wings also let it take off and land on short, rough airfields right near the battle area. It can stay in the air for a long time and fly effectively even when clouds are as low as 1,000 feet with a visibility of 1.5 miles. It usually cruises at around 300 knots, which is much slower than typical fighter jets. The front edge of each wing is built like a honeycomb. It's incredibly strong, but keeps the weight down. The same lightweight panels are used on the flaps, tail, and fins. The wing's outer skin is built right into its support structure and is made by computer-controlled machines, which makes it faster and cheaper to build. Combat has proven this design holds up well against damage. Since the outer skin isn't crucial for keeping the wing together, soldiers can patch up damaged sections pretty easily in the field. They can even use makeshift materials if needed. The ailerons, the parts that help the plane roll, are special in 2 ways. First, they're unusually large, taking up almost half the wing length, which gives the pilot better control at slow speeds. Second, they're split in half and can act as air brakes, helping slow the plane down when needed. The Thunderbolt II was built to be super practical. You can refuel it, reload its weapons, and fix it up without needing fancy equipment. Its simple design means mechanics can work on it even at basic forward bases. Here's a cool feature. Many parts are exactly the same on both sides of the plane, including the engines, landing gear, and tail fins. So if you need to swap parts, it's much easier. The tough landing gear, special tires, and wide wings mean it can land pretty much anywhere, even on rough airstrips when it's loaded with weapons. If an airbase gets damaged, no problem. The A-10 can take off and land using taxiways or even regular roads. This next-generation aircraft is incredibly tough. It can take direct hits from armor-piercing and explosive shells up to 23 millimeters and keep flying. It has backup systems for everything important. If the main hydraulic systems fail, there's a second set, and if both of those fail, there's even a mechanical backup. When running on the backup mechanical system, the plane is harder to control but can still make it back to base. Here is how tough this plane really is. It can keep flying even with one engine gone, half its tail shot off, one elevator destroyed, and half a wing missing. Since it flies low and close to enemy forces, it's an easy target for shoulder-launched missiles, bigger surface-to-air missiles, and enemy planes. To help protect itself, it carries flares and chaff. These are defensive measures that can confuse incoming missiles. The heart of the Warthog protection is a massive titanium bathtub, a shield weighing 1,200 pounds that wraps around the pilot and vital controls. This armor can take hits from 23mm cannon fire and even shrug off fragments from bigger 57mm shells. The titanium plates range from ½ inch to 1½ inches thick, with each section carefully designed based on where and how the enemy fire might hit. This armor makes up about 6% of the plane's weight when empty. To protect the pilot from any fragments that might bounce around inside, they line the interior with layers of nylon. The windscreen and canopy can even stop bullets from small arms. Want to know how tough this protection is? Here is a true story. In April 2003, during the Iraq invasion, Captain Kim Campbell was flying over Baghdad when her A-10 got hammered by anti-aircraft fire. The hits knocked out one engine and wrecked the hydraulics, forcing her to fly the plane using just the backup mechanical controls. Even with all that damage, she kept that aircraft in the air for almost an hour and landed safely. The A-10 designers were clever with the engine placement. Since the plane often operates from rough airfields, they mounted the General Electric engines up high on the back of the plane. This keeps dirt and debris from getting sucked in, a common problem that can wreck jet engines. This position also means ground crews can work on the plane while the engines are running, which helps get it back in the air faster. The low-mounted wings make it easier for crews to reload weapons and do maintenance too. Those big engines need serious support. They are held on by just 4 heavy-duty bolts. Here's another smart design feature. The engines have a special ratio that helps hide their heat signature, and their position means the hot exhaust blows over the tail, making it harder for heat-seeking missiles to spot the plane. The Warthog fuel system is built to be tough to damage. All 4 main fuel tanks sit close together in the middle of the plane, away from the outer skin. This means bullets or shrapnel have to get through the plane's outer armor before they can even reach the tanks. The fuel lines can seal themselves if they are hit, and special valves stop fuel from flowing into damaged tanks. They put most of the fuel system parts inside the tanks themselves. That way, if something breaks, the special plane would not lose fuel. The Warthog's main weapon is the G8U-8-A- Avenger, a massive cannon that fires 30mm shells. It's one of the most powerful aircraft guns ever built. The Avenger uses 7 spinning barrels powered by hydraulics, designed specifically to destroy tanks. When it first came out, pilots could switch between 2,100 or 4,200 armor-piercing shots per minute. Later versions fired at a set rate of 3,900 rounds per minute. The gun takes about half a second to start firing. In that first second, it shoots 50 rounds. After that, it fires around 65 to 70 rounds each second. To show how precise it is, when the Warthog is flying 4,000 feet high, 8 out of 10 shots hit inside a 40-foot circle. The gun works best when the plane dives at a 30-degree angle from 4,000 feet away. The whole plane was built around this massive gun. They placed it slightly to the left side of the plane, but when a barrel is firing, it lines up perfectly with the center of the aircraft. The gun's drum, where all the ammunition is stored, is nearly 6 feet long and can hold up to 1,350 of these 30mm shells, though they usually load it with 1,174. To keep all this ammunition safe, they put layers of armor between the plane's skin and the drum. If an enemy shell hits this armor, it's designed to make the shell explode before it can reach the ammunition inside. However, by 1991, ground fire was seen as the main threat rather than enemy aircraft. That's when they switched to the Compass ghost paint scheme, with darker gray on top and lighter gray underneath. Before that, they had experimented with lots of different patterns. One was called the peanut scheme, mixing sand, yellow, and field drab colors. They even had a black and white version for winter missions. But during the Cold War, they mostly stuck to what they called European or woodland camouflage, which used dark green, medium green, and dark gray to blend in with European forests. Back then, they were more worried about enemy fighters spotting them than ground attacks. But that thinking shifted after the Gulf War in 1991. There is still a lot of debate about what to do with the A-10. Back in 2007, the Air Force thought they'd keep operating it until at least 2028. Their strategy was to substitute it with the F-35 Lightning II, but not everyone supported this idea. Winslow Wheeler, who monitors military spending, called it a huge mistake. He highlighted how well the A-10 functions and how costly the F-35 is. In 2012, military officials examined using a specialized version of the F-35 that could take off and land vertically, but discovered it could not complete enough missions. By 2013, both Congress and military leadership were exploring different possibilities, including the F-35 and even unmanned aircraft like the MQ-9 Reaper. However, many experts maintain that nothing matches the A-10's robust armor and powerful cannon for backing ground troops. The A-10 has stuck around for years because Congress kept blocking the Air Force's attempts to retire it. But things changed recently. In 2023, Congress finally agreed to let the Air Force get rid of 21 of these planes through that year's defense budget. Back in 2011, scientists had a bold plan. The National Science Foundation put up $11 million to turn an A-10 into a weather research plane. This was going to be a team effort between the Naval Postgraduate School and researchers from the South Dakota School of Mines and Technology. They needed something to replace their old T-28 Trojan aircraft, but by 2018, they hit a wall. The changes they'd need to make to the A-10 would cost way too much money and be too risky, so they had to scrap the whole project. The Warthog is not pretty or sleek like most modern fighter jets. It is a tough, practical machine built to take hits and protect its pilot. The proof is in its history. The A-10 has flown thousands of missions, saved countless ground troops, and brought its pilots home safely even after taking massive damage. That's why ground forces gave it a special nickname. They call it the Warthog, not because it's beautiful, but because it's unstoppable. Thanks for watching. While you are still here, click on the link on your screen to check out another of our videos. See you there.